Think about it for a second. At the absolute height of the Roman Empire, one of Caesar's own legendary legions just disappears from the history books. There's no record of a final battle, no mention of its fate, nothing. Just silence. This is the incredible mystery of Legio IX Hispana, Rome's famous lost legion.
And that's the question that has haunted historians for centuries. You see, we're not talking about some small patrol that got lost. We're talking about nearly 5,500 of the most battle-hardened elite veterans in the entire Roman army. So how does a military force that big just vanish from one of the most meticulous, record-keeping empires the world has ever seen?
And what a history this legion had. I mean, the Ninth was one of Caesar's most trusted units all the way back in the Gallic Wars. They were right there on the front lines, leading the invasion of Britain in 43 AD. They even got nearly wiped out during Boudicca's famous revolt, losing almost 2,000 men, but they were rebuilt and kept right on fighting. And then, sometime around 120 AD, the records just stop. They're gone.
Now, if you've heard anything about the Ninth Legion before, you've probably heard one story in particular. It's this epic tale of a heroic last stand, of a legion swallowed whole by the mists of ancient Scotland. Let's dig into the legend that really captured the world's imagination. Right, so this is the classic theory. It got really popular back in the 19th century and was basically set in stone by Rosemary Sutcliffe's amazing 1954 novel, The Eagle of the Ninth. The story goes that around 117 AD, the Ninth marched north into what we call Scotland to crush a rebellion, and they were never seen again. Annihilated, down to the very last man, by the fierce northern tribes. It's an incredible, dramatic story. And you know, for a long time, there was this one tantalizing clue that seemed to back this story up perfectly. Take a look at the careers of two of the Legion's senior officers. On the left, you've got Lucius Caerier. He leaves the Ninth in 121 AD and goes on to have a perfect textbook Roman career. But his replacement, Lucius Saturninus, his career just goes dead silent for 13 years. That is a highly unusual gap, and it smells like disgrace. Maybe the kind of disgrace that comes from being the senior officer who survived a disaster that destroyed your entire legion. But as compelling as that story is, modern archaeology has this funny habit of messing up good stories. Because when we actually start to follow the hard evidence, that whole legend of a Scottish disaster, well, it begins to completely fall apart. Yeah, because while stories are powerful, they aren't proof. And the actual proof, the stuff written in stone and baked into clay, tells a totally different story. Today, that theory of the Ninth being annihilated in Britain has been, well, definitively refuted. The whole investigation has had to move from Britain over to continental Europe. So where did this proof come from? Hundreds of miles away, in what is now the Netherlands, archaeologists in a town called Nijmegen started digging up all this stuff, tile stamps made by the Ninth, an inscribed military medallion, even an altar dedicated by one of their centurions. Put it all together, and these artifacts prove the Legion was transferred out of Britain and was operating on the Rhine frontier long after it was supposed to have been destroyed. But the final nail in the coffin for that whole Scotland theory is this right here. It's the career inscription of an officer named Lucius Aemilius Carus, and it shows that he was appointed as a military tribune to the Ninth Legion sometime after 122 AD. I mean, think about it. The Roman army just did not appoint high-ranking officers to legions that no longer existed. The Britain myth was officially totally busted. Okay, so if the Ninth wasn't wiped out in Britain, what in the world did happen to it? Now that we've cleared away the popular myth, the real investigation can actually begin. And right now, scholars have focused on three main hypotheses for the Legion's true fate. All right, so let's look at the three big theories. First up is destruction in Judea. The timing actually fits really well. The Ninth would have left the Rhine and could have been sent to fight in the incredibly brutal Bar Kokhba revolt. Rome took horrible losses there. The problem? There's a complete absence of evidence. Not one single artifact from the Ninth has ever been found anywhere in the region. So, theory 2. They went even further east, to the border with Parthia. The historian Cassius Dio writes about an entire, though unnamed, Roman legion getting wiped out in Armenia around 161 AD. The Ninth is a candidate, sure, but there is just zero direct evidence that it was ever stationed that far east. And that brings us to the last and maybe the most interesting idea, administrative disbandment. The theory here is that the Legion, maybe weakened by years of fighting, wasn't destroyed in some glorious final battle at all. It was just dissolved. Its men would have been folded into other units. This explains why we can't find a battle site, but there's a huge flaw. We have no official record of that order ever being given.
So where does all of this leave us? We've basically traded a romantic, exciting legend for a much more complicated and honestly a much more frustrating historical puzzle.
The hard evidence, The trail of artifacts, it just runs cold after the Legion's time in the Netherlands. We can say for certain that the famous story about the Ninth dying in Scotland is a myth. But what happened next, whether it were shattered on some forgotten eastern battlefield or just quietly erased from the army lists, that remains a subject of really intense debate. It's a genuine, unsolved case from the ancient world.
And that really brings us to the final haunting question. Was this legendary legion, a unit that fought for Caesar himself and helped conquer Britain, ultimately brought down in one catastrophic bloody battle? Or was its end much quieter, a simple administrative decision to erase a weakened unit from the imperial records? Was its fate sealed by the sword or by the stroke of a pen? For now, the answer remains lost to history.